Hello, and welcome to Personality. I'm your host, Lori Rawlings, and my guest today is Tracey Griffith, who is the new executive director of the Building and Construction Trades Council of South Central Wisconsin, and she's only the second woman to serve in that role. Tracey is a dynamic leader with over 20 years of experience in workforce development and outreach, specializing in union construction. In her new role, she works with 17 local building trade unions representing over 6,000 workers. And her job is to ensure fair wages, workplace safety, and worker protection on all construction projects. She supports union apprenticeships and initiatives that promote diversity and inclusion to expand the workforce. And she also supports and advocates for ordinances and policies that promote and protect workers by building relationships with regional stakeholders. Previously, she held leadership positions with Midwest Urban Strategies, the Walbeck Group, and WRTP Big Step. I am honored to have you here today, Tracey. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to spend my Friday morning with you and have some conversation
Me
about
too.
union apprenticeship and what we're doing out here in South Central Wisconsin.
That's wonderful. So, can you tell us a little bit about how you got into the construction industry?
Oh, you're making me go back a lot of years. But sure, I would love to give you a little bit of background on that. So about 25 years or so ago, I was going actually through a divorce and I was in school for nursing. So figure this out, right? And a friend of mine approached me and said that a good friend of hers was taking the lead on an organization called WR. It was Big Step at the time,
Hmm.
taking a role with Big Step. And they were trying to find somebody to help get it off the ground again and to work with the union trades. And
Hmm.
although I was familiar with the trades, having family who worked within the construction industry, I knew nothing about it, nothing at all. And I agreed to work part-time and to do it temporarily. I think I said I'll give him 90 days to help get him off the ground. And I was jumped in with both feet. 20 years later, I was still there. And
Wow.
so when I started that job, I mean, I literally started out in the office as I guess, program assistant, program coordinator, developing the materials, and the organization really was developed to get diverse applicants into the union building trades.
Hmm.
And it had passed hands a few times. And so each time it passed hands, it was almost like starting over.
Hmm.
And so when this new CEO took over, he really wanted to solidify it as a imprint within the union, as a tool for the union building trades to use this as a recruitment tool for them. And I developed relationships with the apprenticeship program, and my role grew within that 20 years. And so when I left there, I actually was the director of the construction portion of that organization. And WRTP Big Step now is a national intermediary.
Wow. So, you must have really fallen in love with construction to stay 20 years beyond your initial 90-day
Yeah,
commitment.
that 90 days, I look back and I'm so aging myself. I fell in love with the challenge um of the industry, because there's challenges, and there's 17 different trades, and figuring out each trade has its own way to get in, its own pathway. And but the outcome is the same. Everybody wants, all of the unions want a good living wage, good benefits for workers, and families supporting wages for everyone that comes through. And so for me, especially, I was going through a divorce, I was a single mom, what the union stood for and what I was able to do, and the impact that I could make on perhaps people that were going through challenges and going through life changes and didn't know where they needed to go to end up in a better place. For me, I couldn't have found a better home, and that's what I found, and I was welcomed. Um, and yeah, I guess I would say that I fell in love with what the unions can give to individuals coming through.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That's such a well-kept secret that
Mhm.
union construction trades careers are really a pathway into the middle class for people who might not otherwise have the opportunity. And so I'm just so glad that people like you are out there getting people into the industry and helping them support their families in this way.
Yeah, you know what's interesting when you say that is when I started there 20-ish years ago. Now it's been more years than that. It's been about 27. Do not do the math on my age. But at that time, for about 15 years or so when I worked there, the union construction industry was not looked at as a viable tool. It was you would go into the industry if you weren't going to be successful in college.
Hmm.
You, the unions were looked at as what are they doing? What is their purpose? And what has been interesting for me is the changes throughout the years as we are now hitting an era where the apprenticeship programs are back in the school, the options for apprenticeship. Wisconsin is the leading state youth apprenticeship. All things creative and innovative come to Wisconsin, and we've got it here. And teachers are now using it as an option as, hey, a 4-year college pathway is not the only pathway. There are other viable pathways, not just you're going into the trades if you're going to be a failure in college. It's a
Hmm.
competitive tool. And what's really great is that the numbers are out there as far as a graduate from college is making very comparable to what a journey worker makes after finishing their apprenticeship program with no college debt. So for me, it's exciting to step into this role. And even though I still have to educate people and people don't really understand apprenticeship or how it works and where do the unions fall in, and it's really confusing for some people to come in and say, this is a pathway, send your student here. Or if you are going through a life change, they don't look at your age, they look at the ability. Can you do the job?
Hmm.
Are you willing to learn? Do you have a good attitude? um, Here the doors are open. So it's really an exciting time to be working within the industry.
That's great. And so, what are some of the initiatives and accomplishments of which you are most proud of in your career?
Oh, I have had such wonderful opportunities within this industry. I guess one of the things I'm very proud of was developing the Big Step program from the bottom up and watching it grow as a national intermediary. Part of that is Big Step was one of the first certified pre apprenticeship programs in the state of Wisconsin, and I was part of writing the application for that program. um, that that organization and the ability to educate students and people within our community to have a place for them to go to give them solid footing to get into the industry warms my heart. I run into people when I'm shopping at Target or Costco who remember me from 20 years ago, who
Wow.
say thank you for helping me. So I really love that. The other piece was back when I worked with WRTP Big Step, there was a big project, the Northwestern Mutual Project in downtown Milwaukee. The developer came in and the general contractor really wanted to have diversity shown on that project. And I worked with the building trade president and all of the unions in southeastern Wisconsin to develop, I guess, a process, a pipeline to make that project a success. So all the minority goals were met, and that people who went through WRTP Big Step secured an apprenticeship and were able to get work that is more than just a job. They were able to stay in and have a career. And I love that that project is really used as a here's the golden standard of what you should do on projects and how you should use local workforce and how you can engage your communities to make this successful. So I love that. And then the other thing that's near and dear to my heart, I belong to an organization, I'm a board member to an organization called Empower, which started, I guess I should know this as I'm a board member, probably 6 years ago. with union workers, union women who said, we want to come together and have a statewide organization that can impact women within the industry. And I was one of the founding members, and I get to work with a super cool group of women. And it's taken me throughout my career, even here, because I'm now able to work and grow and empower within South Central Wisconsin in this role. So I
That's
would say
wonderful.
those probably are the three things.
That's wonderful. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about Empower because I know mentoring is a huge initiative for Empower. Can you tell us a little bit about the mentorship program and why mentoring is such an important initiative for Empower?
Yeah, sure. So we were able to work with the Department of Workforce Development, the Apprenticeship Bureau, and secured a grant to develop a formalized mentoring program. Let's be honest, we women are wonderful. We sometimes we mentor naturally. It's in our blood, it's in our genetics, where we want to help others succeed. And because, women in the industry has been it's growing, but it's not where we need it to be. Having a formalized program makes it real, it makes it intentional, and that's important. Now, the union industry does a good job, right? You have a journey worker that is mentoring the apprentice always. There's a train to trainer program that teaches you how to be a good leader within the industry. But the difference with the formalized mentoring program is it says, here I am, I'm this person. I am willing to work with you, help you, answer your questions, and work with you through challenges that you may have. And separate from, it's not always about the challenges. Sometimes it's just needing to vent or ask a question, and you don't want to look stupid.
Right.
And you don't want to be the person asking the question, but having a safe person to go to say, could we talk about this? I don't know if is this normal? Is how would you handle this? Have you ever had to handle this? So us putting together this mentoring program allows women to work with Empower and to connect with a leader within the industry to help them. Mentoring is so important as far as retention within the industry. If there is no mentorship, people will leave the industry. Construction's a
Hmm.
tough place to be.
Hmm.
The hours can be long. You have a child. How do you handle that when you're working long hours if you don't have support? There's so many different facets to it. But
Hmm.
when you have someone to say, hey, have you thought of this? Here's a resource. You bring together this group of women who all of their strength come together and any weaknesses or challenges they have are sort of elevated into a positive way to work through it. And Empower really believes in positive solutions and looking at things in a positive way. How do we elevate ourselves and continue in the industry? And then how do we turn around and help the next woman through the industry?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, construction is a tough industry for anyone.
Mhm.
Because of the hours, because sometimes you're traveling a lot, you're away from home, you're away from family a lot. Um, and it's particularly tough because women only make up 4% of tradespeople in the field. And so a lot of times you might be the only woman on the job site. And maybe, for example, you don't have access to a clean restroom, things like that. And so
Mhm.
I can really see how just being able to be matched up with a woman who's maybe from a different trade, um, who you've never actually worked with on a job site would just be helpful for answering some of those basic questions like what do I do in this situation.
Right. And
That's
just say, here's my number. Shoot me a text in the middle of the day. If you have a question or if you're having a hard time or if you want to meet up for a beer or a
Mhm.
coffee or, on a job site for a quick conversation, let's do that and let's work together to continue to get that number higher. Let's make that number grow so that it becomes normalized to see women working on a job site. When you're
Mhm.
driving through and looking, I never worked within on a job site, but I
Mhm.
know people who build the job sites, they look through and they will drive through and say, hey, I built that. I
Mhm.
did that. I drive through and what I look at, Are they working safely? And
Hmm.
let's see what that industry looks like. Am I seeing somebody that looks like me? Is there a person of color? Um, where are we with our diversity efforts? And where are the women? And what I'm seeing is more of me, more diversity in color, and that means what we're doing is working. And so that to me shows that we just have to keep up that effort and we have to continue to make it intentional.
I think you're so right. Representation is so important because if women and girls don't see women and girls on a construction site, they will just naturally assume that women don't belong there. So,
Mhm. It goes
um,
back to the if you see it, you can be it. And
absolutely.
if we are showing the younger generation that there's someone that looks like them, there's someone who understands them, somebody that comes from their culture or their background, that means it opens up the door for other people to feel comfortable having conversations and entering the industry. That's so important.
So I imagine you have a lot of opportunities to give advice to women and girls who are thinking about pursuing careers in the trades. What kind
I
of
try
advice do
to
you?
always I give my personal number out, my work cell phone, my work email, but I actually give my personal information out. In my role now as executive director for the building and construction trades here in South Central, I'm not often the one on the ground doing outreach.
Mhm.
Our trades do such a great job, but what I'm starting to do is show up at those events. Making sure that they see me and feel comfortable reaching out so that I can connect them to somebody that they may want to. I have a lot of connections within the area from committees I've sat on previously that usually involve diversity and inclusion or labor management strategies or building a better community. And I will always put my foot in the door to be part of those so that I can, from the role that I'm sitting in, help people enter and make it an open door policy.
That's great. So let's turn now to the work you're doing with the Building and Construction Trades Council of South Central Wisconsin. Can you tell us a little bit about what the organization is and what its function and mission are?
Sure. So the building and construction trades of South Central Wisconsin is comprised of 17 different unions, about 6,000 workers in the South Central Wisconsin area. And our mission is, we believe there's unity in strength. We strive to improve wages and secure safe and healthy working conditions for all of our members while providing family sustaining wages and benefits, providing value to the projects that we build. That's really important. That's a big difference in what we do. I think that our council, what I've seen now, I've only been here just short of 4 months. However, I've worked within the industry, for many years. But in this role, 4 months, I'm watching and I'm learning a lot to see what has been done here and what do we need to do going forward. So one of the things that I am looking at is our mission still do we need to update it? What can I do to update our website to really showcase what we do here in South Central Wisconsin? There's a lot that we do, projects that um, have been critical to the growth of the Madison area. There's so much outreach and diversity efforts our group makes that we don't really highlight. We just do it. It's part of what we do. I would say that we have the most hardworking members and delegates and leaders within the industry who are always willing to say, "What do you need? What can I do within the community? How do we continue to build up the area? What can we do to be more diverse?" And so as I'm watching what has been done and having those conversations, I'm having conversations about how to grow our organization and to even be better and have a wider impact within the next 10 years.
Yeah, I think you made such a key point there that in construction, we typically keep our head down and just do the work, and we don't do as much as we probably should in terms of marketing what what construction adds to the community
Yeah.
and why it's such a great career path for young people. So I think that's great that that is one of the efforts that you're focusing on. What would you say your main goals are in your new
Oh,
role?
Lori, I have so many. I really do. I
Great.
I just I've come into this role, the role was unfilled for about a year and a half. They wanted to find the right person to fit it because it isn't a job for everyone. It's
Hmm.
you wear a lot of different hats, from some negotiation, dealing with stakeholders, sitting on councils, working with the members, and so sometimes I'm my own project assistant, my own administrative
Hmm.
assistant. So coming in, I think I want to really focus on strengthening out labor and management relationships, which I think are really, really important. I
Hmm.
really believe in collaboration. Um, I think that even though Wisconsin is top of the line for apprenticeship, I think that we need to continue to demonstrate the value of registered apprenticeship and continue to build our talent pipeline by showcasing what it is and how it works and the value of it. I want to really continue to increase diversity within our industry, which, like I said, our group does a great job, but I want to do better. I want to make sure that we're always communicating who we are and how to get here, and that there's people that look like other people within our industry that can talk about our industry. I want to continue to advocate and improve the good compensation and benefits, for our members with our employers, and then continuing to cultivate relationships with stakeholders so that we can share the benefits of using the skilled union workforce on projects and the value that that brings. So I would say those are probably the highlights of what I want to do within this role. And I think that some of that comes naturally with work that I've done before, but the work that I do, I believe that we have to be intentional about it. So as I'm learning about the South Central and the Madison area, because this is a new area for me,
Hmm.
I'm learning the politics, the dynamics, what hasn't worked in the past is really important to know. But just
Hmm.
because it hasn't worked in the past doesn't mean it can't work now. And
Sure.
maybe coming in and having a different conversation. So having those conversations with people within this community is what I really want to do.
That's great. Yeah, because I I've encountered that as well, that sometimes when you want to introduce an initiative, people say, "Ah, we tried that 30 years ago and it didn't work." Okay, well, why didn't it work? Maybe it can. And that can be frustrating because sometimes it feels like trying to shift the direction of any industry, but probably the construction industry in particular, it's like trying to turn an aircraft carrier.
Right.
So, uh, but it's wonderful that you have those goals. And I think you're absolutely right. Collaboration is really key. A good relationship between labor and management is so key to being able to advance
I think
everyone's goals.
sometimes just being willing to have a conversation, whether you agree 100% or not, opening the door to have a conversation, and you might have to circle back and have it again and again. And if there's nothing else about me, I'm super persistent. And so, clearly, because my 90 days back at my role when I started within the industry ended up being a 20-year gig, I wanted to
Mhm.
continue to make change and always wanted to make things better. Um, and it changes. And so that's what
Mhm.
I want to do here is continue to make our industry better,
Mhm.
whatever that might look like.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just right before you said I'm super persistent. I was thinking, if anyone can do this, Tracy can, because she's super persistent.
Well, I appreciate that. I think too, the important thing is I have a council. Um, I have an executive board and I have my business managers and I have my delegates. And what has happened since I started here is a lot of, what do you need from us?
Mhm.
How can I help you? Now, I don't know if they'll really help me if I reach out. I'm hoping they will, but they have been super supportive. And so what that tells me is we are all in this together,
Mhm.
and they want someone to help move it forward. And I believe in doing that together. So I'm excited about our future here in the Madison area.
That's great. That's great. I mean, it's great that they've approached you about and asked you if you need help. So,
Mhm.
because a lot of leaders don't think to do that. So, I think that's an encouraging sign.
Yeah.
So, you know, you didn't come up through the trades. You didn't work in the field. You were pursuing nursing and just kind of got into construction through happenstance, which honestly is how I got into the industry as well. So I'm wondering if you ever encountered any barriers in trying to succeed in any of your roles in construction, and if so, how you overcame them.
Um, yeah, so a lot of my roles, I've always had some challenges. And I'm going to speak generically for a moment and then I'll give a specific example. I believe that a challenge is an opportunity. So when somebody tells me no or gives pushback, I have always been the person who tries to find a way around that. How do I get around it, through it, with them, without them, to get to the goal that's needed? But I really believe in trying to get everybody on board so we're all headed in the same direction. One of the bigger challenges I think that I had was in a past role, and that was, when you're wearing a hat that I wore, which always was around diversity. I really am a strong believer in increasing diversity in industries across the way and opening the doors for people, for giving a voice to people who might not have a voice of their own. That is such a passion of mine. And in one of my last roles, I was responsible for increasing diversity within our organization. And so, in doing so, I believe that you have to look at numbers, and you have to not just look at the numbers of what you're hiring coming in, you have to look at that retention,
Hmm.
because companies can hire as many diverse people as they want. And they can then run a report and say, we've got X amount of diverse candidates. Don't we look great? We're wonderful. Life is great. What I look at is, let's look at what's happening within that group. Are they having challenges? Are people being supportive? Are there employee resource groups? Are there resources for them? Are they staying? Are they making it through the apprenticeship program? And if not, why?
Hmm.
So I will say that my challenges lied within those conversations, because when you have those conversations, those are hard conversations to have.
Hmm.
Why are people leaving? Why aren't they making it through? The construction industry used to be an industry that said, if you don't make it, tough luck. You have to be tough, pull up your
Hmm.
pants, strap your boots, you know, get to work. And if you make it, great. And if you don't, it's not for you. That is not the construction industry today in 2025. You still need to wear boots and be safe on the job. You still need to suck it up sometimes. There's that. But it is about mentoring. It is
Hmm.
about teaching. It is about having conversations so that people understand the job, because people coming into the industry today may not have the high number of family members coming in that it was 30, 40 years ago, where the industry was just part of a household.
Hmm.
So I would say that the challenges that I really had were when I sat down at a table and looked across the table, being probably the only woman in the room, saying, great, we hired a lot of people, but we
Hmm.
lost them.
Right.
That your answer isn't acceptable. The fact that, well, they just didn't show up to the job. Why didn't they show up? I want
Right.
to have those conversations. So those were challenging conversations, Lori, because people feel that you might be pointing the finger at them. And
Hmm.
that isn't really the case. The case is, let's have that conversation. Maybe you don't understand what that person's going through. And I get, we're running a business and sometimes we don't care. We need to make money. We need the, what's the ROI on our hires and all of those things. But you want to be able to have somebody on that job site that your worker feels comfortable reaching out to.
Mm-hmm.
So if their car didn't start, or if they didn't have money for gas, or if they didn't have child care, and do they feel comfortable reaching out to let you know that? And if they just say this isn't for me and walk away, we need to do a better job in the industry then. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's what I push for. And those were probably some of my biggest challenges, those conversations.
Yeah, that focus on retention is so critical
Mhm.
because it doesn't do you any good to hire 100 people and lose 30 of them without investigating why. And turnover in the industry, it's high for across all demographics.
Right.
But there are certain demographics that do face specific kinds of challenges, like women and people of color. And harassment and discrimination are a big part of what pushes women and people of color out of the industry. And so I take the same focus that you have to prepare the groundwork for people to be
Mm-hmm.
successful. You can't just go out and recruit a bunch of people who don't have family in the trade and don't really know anything about the construction industry and then just throw them on a job site
Right.
without
You
any
say you
support.
say here you go, and you hope
Right.
1 out of 10 stick. Is that,
Right.
so I think that the great thing about the union construction industry right now is, for one, I want to say employers need to hold their leaders on the job sites responsible for making sure there isn't harassment, there isn't bullying, that there is training and mentorship going on. And I think that our employers are doing a better job of that.
Hmm.
But our union industry is doing a better job as well, because working with an organization, for example, like WRTP Big Step, who does apprenticeship readiness training that helps people get ready for the industry. They're partnered with industry representatives so that the new people coming into the industry are prepped. They have a better idea of what is expected. You're
Hmm.
working with industry union professionals that are showing you, telling you, helping teach you, so that before you even get on the job, you have some basic foundations, and then
Hmm.
you have some familiar faces as well. And so I think doing that, that's intentional work. You're going to hear me say a lot. We need to do a better job about being intentional within the industry. And that is a perfect example of, we are going to sit and meet, we're going to collaborate, we're going to have committees that we're working on together for a common goal, so that the work that we're doing is in partnership, that we're being intentional, and that our outcomes are matching the efforts we're putting in.
Wonderful. Well, you've answered all the questions that I had for you. I'm wondering if there is anything else you would like our audience to know.
I think that for anybody listening, I would say that if you're not familiar with apprenticeship, registered apprenticeship, take a look. Have a real understanding what it means and how it can benefit you, your student, your child, your employee, how union labor can benefit projects by having them be cost effective, and using skilled labor is better working conditions, safer. They're going to they may have a little bit higher bid in some circumstances, but it's going to cost you less because of the quality of the project. But to know that there is a pathway that will get you family sustaining wages, and this is the pathway. And if there's questions about that, reach out to me, reach out to a union member. I'd love to have a meeting. I'd love to talk about how we can work together to better our communities, to promote good wages and a pathway out of poverty for community residents. There's just so many great opportunities here. So I just want people to know there's a face behind the building trades, and I'd be happy to answer questions. And if I don't know the answer, I am a person who will get you those answers. So please reach out to us.
I really appreciate that. And I will make sure to include the link to the Building Trades website in the show notes for this episode, as well as your email address. I
Please
think I'll
do.
also, since I love your suggestion that people check out and learn more about apprenticeship, I'll cross reference in our show notes an episode of this podcast that I did with our good friend David Polk, who is the director of the Wisconsin Bureau of Apprenticeship Standards, because I made him like talk through what is apprenticeship. Tell me how it works. And
If
uh,
anybody can talk about apprenticeship, it is David Polk, and he is doing great work in Wisconsin. And I think that is a great tool for people to have to get that, base understanding.
Wonderful. Well, Tracy, I really want to thank you for taking the time to join us here today. And I just appreciate all the work that you've done on behalf of the people of Wisconsin to put people into family sustaining careers. So I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you for reaching out. I love that I get to see you still and the great work you're doing. I love to be able to turn on something and see Lori's face there and promoting just great information and knowledge for people who want to learn and need this kind of information. So great seeing you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Tracy.